Hey there, listeners. Welcome to Talent Horizon, the podcast where the future of work meets cutting-edge technology. I'm Helge, your AI and tech expert.
And I'm Lee, the recruitment strategist, here to bring you the human angle on talent acquisition and the art of connecting people with their perfect job opportunities.
And today we got a real treat for you. Joining us is Murshid Ali, author of Doing the Impossible, a book that's been making waves in the entrepreneurial world.
And Doing the Impossible isn't just a book title, it's what recruiters and entrepreneurs do every day, turning the daunting into the doable. Just like running a staffing business, entrepreneurship is about taking risks, selling your vision, and most importantly, believing in the impossible.
Murshid is a Norwegian entrepreneur, actually from my hometown Stavanger. He's got a PhD in economics and management. And when I decided to start Globus AI back in 2019, Murshid was one of the first people I talked to, actually. He's been involved in establishing several companies, including Skyfri, Huddlestock, and Norsk Solar, Norwegian Solar. And in the fall of 2021, Huddlestock and Norwegian Solar were valued at 1 billion kroner each. And a year earlier, actually, Huddlestock was close to bankruptcy.
So Murshid, thank you for coming to the show. It's great having you here. So let's start with an introduction. Who is Murshid?
Great. Thank you, Helge, and thank you, Lee, for this opportunity to be on the podcast. Who am I? Entrepreneur. I like to build things. I like to start things from just an idea stage to developing technology, hiring teams, scaling companies, commercializing technologies, seeing if we can actually make a change in the world, trying to do new things. So I started off, as Helge said, in Stavanger with building a financial technology company called Huddlestock. We built that up and then we listed that on the stock exchange. And then we also started Norsk Solar that has recently changed its name to Norsk Renewables, also listed on the same stock exchange, and now just recently Skyfri. And what I really love to do is to build great things with great teams and people that are really good at what they're doing. So yeah, that's short my background.
Murshid, could you walk us through the moment when you realized that your entrepreneurial journey was about to take off with Skyfri, Huddlestock, or Norwegian Solar? We always talk about the product market fit, when you have it, when you don't. What was your moment in realizing this is going to take off?
To be honest, I don't really feel that I've had that moment ever. Like you're waiting for that moment and you're thinking like, okay, now it's going to come. It's right around the corner. You just build this great product and you used millions of kroners in building it and you got this great feedback and then you launch it and then you anticipate that it's going to take off and you're going to see a lot of clients coming in and that never happens. And then you will struggle to pivot and you need to do all kinds of things to try to get your first customer. So I just feel that building companies have been this long journey of doing things that are super difficult. And it's really almost a shit show every single day. You never come to that point. I have never been fortunate enough to come to that point where I feel that, oh, I build a product and it's scaling massively and we're selling to millions of people and we're making a lot of money by just sitting on the couch watching TV. I feel all of my entrepreneurial journeys have always been like filled with headaches. And even if things go well and you win a big contract, it's okay, great, we won this contract. But the day after, you're like, how do we deliver this to the customer? And then you take it to the tech team and they go crazy because they're like, what have you sold in? So there's always a lot of challenges, always when you build a company, I feel at least.
Yeah, every day is probably just hard work building a company. I'm sure that's just how it is.
The question that springs to mind is, what is it that drives you on? What keeps you coming back for more?
I think it's the combination of both because so I wrote this book, Doing the Impossible, and it's basically written in Norwegian, Gjøre det umulige, and it's about the highs and lows of building a company. And I try to go very detailed into the lows because the lows, they are very low. It's a brutal game out there everyone that have started a company knows that if you run out of money and you don't have a product that sells and you're not capable of raising investor capital, it's game over. And that's how the markets work. And it doesn't help if you're tall and pretty and all of that stuff doesn't help. It's basically game over. I think when I look back at the journey, I think that one of the things that really I feel has been a integral part of the journey is those deep lows and those highs. They go hand in hand. You need to have those really deep lows to understand how this journey is. And afterwards, in retrospect, it actually feels good to have been through that deep low and have survived. That makes you think, okay, if I survive this, I can almost survive anything. And that's a good feeling to have.
I think the thing that strikes me is that your journey, Murshid, is whether it's PhD, whether it's building companies, resilience is so much of it. Yes, you need the intellect, you need the ideas, you need the creativity, you need the drive, but you also need the grind, the resilience to get you, just keep going, just keep turning up.
My philosophy to life in general is that we have a lot of opportunities and it's never over till it's really over. And a lot of times when we were like near bankrupt, things happened were literally logically impossible in many ways. If you're supposed to analyze things and make a big McKinsey report, you're not going to tick all the boxes when you build a company. There's so many floating parts, especially in the early stages. It's all about the entrepreneurs and the drive and the force that the entrepreneurs have in themselves. And I really believe that if you build a company and then you have that determination, you have that drive, and you have that understanding of how to navigate in the landscape and make sales and raise capital, I think that you will be able to survive either way and you will be able to build a company either way. So it's important to always look for opportunities and look for ways of solving problems instead of just shutting down when it's pitch dark, because that's easy to do, right? It's easy to give up in my book, but it's really hard to actually survive and build a company. Only 1 out of 9, according to stats, survive. I think it's about determination. And when you're there, just hang in there and try to not give up, because you never know, around the corner there might be a solution.
So what do you think about the mindset of an entrepreneur? What is required?
Yeah, I used to joke about it and say you need to be below average intelligent. But you're right, Helge. It's about being a bit like Pippi Langstrump and just throwing yourself into it and just starting a company and just doing it and getting shit done. As well as me, that a lot of people, you can have a lot of ideas and you can analyze the markets up and down and you can look at margins and you can look at all of these things. But until you throw yourself into it and you break some eggs and you just really try, nothing is going to happen. So one of the most important things I think that you need to have as an entrepreneur, one is the grit, of course. You need to be able to hang in there, but you also need to be able to execute. So if there's an opportunity that comes your way, and that this could be a potential opportunity, you shouldn't shy away from jumping on and just taking that opportunity and doing something about it and not analyzing too much around these things. And I think in all of the companies I've been involved in, we've taken a huge amount of risks, calculated bird's eye perspective, where you look at an opportunity and you say, okay, I can maybe acquire this company, but I don't know 100% of everything what's there. But I know maybe 60% or 70%, and I understand the dynamics in the market space. So I make a bet that is more all-rounded, and then you just go and you do it. And then most of the time it works out, but it can also become a failure, and then you need to use time and resources in wriggling out of it. And I think also, Helge, it goes into hiring and recruitment processes, because, and this is like over to you guys again, and it's interesting to know from your perspective, because the way we've been hiring in our startups is a lot based on intuition. because you really don't have the time to go through the slow hiring processes. You're like, okay, we need to have three guys or girls on the back end, and we need to have them fast, and we want to have them in-house. And then you almost go for the three first persons that you meet and you like them, but you don't really know if they are a good culture fit, but you just want to do the hiring process really quickly. I would argue that maybe like on 70% of the times it works, but when it doesn't work, it's really bad, especially in Norway where it's not easy to let go of people and so forth. That is also interesting to hear from you guys working in the recruitment industry. How important is it to have that slow phase when you recruit and assess who is going to join your company or not?
When you're external to an organization, that's a very easy adage to adhere to. I think the reality of the startup scenario and scale where everything is moving so fast is possibly harder to do. Is there not an opportunity as you scale? If we look at the move to the gig economy and the proliferation of kind of gig-based talent, is there an opportunity for scaling businesses perhaps to buy in short-term capability to build whatever it is, the product, the technology, to actually build the technical expertise, if you like, just acquire that on a short-term basis, and then maybe take a longer-term approach to hiring those people you want to build out and evolve that culture in your organization? That's not something that naturally entrepreneurs tend to do, but I wonder if that maybe is a better business proposition.
We've done that for a bit, I think at least something similar, but that again requires more management, time and competence, because you need to be very structured on how you define the tasks and the scope. And then you lose out on this proactive way of solving a problem, which you don't really know what to solve and how to go about it, which is the difficult thing in a startup. My respect for experience and competence has increased quite a lot after these years in the startup game. Initially, we were very concerned with high salaries and tried to optimize on who we hired.
There's research goes back many years out of Harvard, I believe, that evidenced the cost of mishire. Depending on where a person sits within an organization, the cost of getting it wrong is anywhere between 2.5 and 54 times salary. The 54 times salary was the argument around if you're an S&P 500 and you get your CEO hire wrong, the impact on your market cap may well be 54 times that salary. But even allowing for 2.5 times salary for an entry-level employee, the cost of mishire is astronomical for any organization. So I would always argue the adage hire slow, fire fast is absolutely the right philosophy to employ. I understand that the practicality of getting shit done when you're in scale-up phase and meeting customer demand places pressure on that. So I think there's probably some balance that needs to be struck.
Murshid, I saw also the kind of the feedback from your book. Startup Lab gave very good reviews, and some even recommended having it as a book in school. So what's the main takeaways that you've added in this book that readers will get?
The reason I wanted to write the book is that I feel entrepreneurs in society in general, at least in Norway, perhaps it's very binary. Either you are a mega success and you built unicorn, or you are someone like Elon Musk or something like that, and then you publish a book about how you got there. There's very little information about the rudimentary beginnings of an entrepreneur, of how it is actually when you start a company from scratch with no money, how you put together a team, how you come up with an idea, how you do all of these very basic things that are basic but are very essential for the beginnings of a company, and especially a technology company. And there's very little information written by entrepreneurs themselves from that phase because they are very busy building companies, basically. If you look at Huddlestock now, We have 70 employees and 100 million NOK in revenues, but we managed to get there through acquisitions. And we used 7 years to commercialize the technology part. So building a company is a very long process. It takes many years and it's still very fragile. And it will be fragile for a long time. That goes for Huddlestock, it goes for Norsk Solar, it goes for Skyfri. And writing about fragile things is also a bit scary, right? Because you don't know if they're there next year or not. But for me, the most important thing was actually writing about the process. How is the process? How do you do these things? And in many ways, they're simple, but they're also complex. And getting that insight for me out to get that insight out to regular entrepreneurs in that phase was quite important.
Do you think it's also relevant to a lot of our listeners who is in the staffing and recruitment business?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say so because a very integral part of building a company is also getting the right people on board. In Huddlestock, for example, we did all the wrong things. We had a remote team in 2014 when you're not supposed to have a remote team. Now it's much more acceptable, but we did a lot of things wrong. We hired on gut feeling. All of these things, I think, could play very well into how you hire people and how you recruit key members of the team and how you build a company based on that. And just on to what you mentioned, Lee, in terms of, okay, could you guys have hired a technical team externally to reach the product market fit, and then you expand on that? And there are a lot of companies doing that with these venture studios that might have the technical expertise and so forth. I wouldn't say that there's any right and wrong in how you do it, but in general, with the experience that I have now, I would adhere more to what Helge said in terms of having that core competence in house and maybe paying for it as well, if you can, because that is immensely valuable, having the right people with the right mindset.
In the part that you think, if we look at the sort of technological evolution in which we find ourselves, the role of technology and in particular AI, how they are changing the landscape of entrepreneurship and perhaps specifically in the staffing industry, how do you see the influence of AI on the space?
I think we are standing in front of major shifts in how the world today works and how it's going to work. I think the waves that are going to change our world fundamentally are standing right in front of us, and AI is definitely part of that. New technologies in climate and renewable energy will also be part of that. A lot of the tasks that humans do today that are manual or administrative will be replaced by AI. We're seeing that coming along already. There's a lot of tasks that maybe knowledge workers are doing today, like architects and doctors, that could partly be assisted by AI as co-pilots and so forth. And also you could give recruiters superpowers by using AI. So there's a lot of change coming, and I think it's really important for us as entrepreneurs and as business owners and as recruiters and people looking for talent to always be on top of our game when it comes to the new technologies that are out there. Just spend some time every week to understand what's the latest and get those insights so that we never miss potential opportunities that might come our way.
How do you think the future of work will look like, and what kind of a role will a recruiter play in that kind of a future?
Yeah, I think the next, say, 4 to 5 years, we are going to be seeing AI taking a lot of the so-called boring work and automating that, while we as humans will be more inclined to working with creative jobs and finding solutions on a more creative way. So you will see that difference coming along. That's definitely for sure. But it's going to be interesting to see how that will play out as well.
What practices do you think recruitment agencies could adopt to differentiate themselves in what is a pretty crowded market?
That's something that AI cannot take away because we've been using recruiters ourselves to hire into key positions because the recruiters we see deliver the best are those that are likable, that we like. Others like them as well. They have a personality that is very much sellable, inclusive. They tick all the boxes. It makes it easier to like them and to make them go out there and find somebody that could fit into the organization. And they also intuitively understand what might work in our organization and what might not work in our organization. And I think that component could be very difficult for AI to replace, that human element of things. That's at least my guess.
If we look at the world of work and how it's evolving, how do you see the challenge of attracting talent, given that arguably that talent could come from anywhere on the planet?
It's all purely based on their output and it's based on how good they are. So we assess everyone on how good they are on programming and what they're doing. So the global talent pool is accessible for a company like ours. So we can hire anyone from anywhere, which is definitely an asset. Yes, we're competing against US-based companies or other companies that can pay much higher. But I think like in Norway, when you hire people and you ask them to come to Norway, you appeal with something more than just salary. So I think we can appeal them with our strengths, the strengths that you have here in Norway, which is not necessarily only salaries. So for us, at least from the Huddlestock days, things have become much more accessible because you get access to that global pool in a different way than you did back then. Back then, we attracted employees because we had really good technical people. We hired them and we had the technical team in-house in London. And that was mostly based on the vision of the company and the ambition. And it was more like this broad idea of what we want to do in the world to make an impact. And that's what made people interested to come and work for Huddlestock as a company, more than salary or quality of life or stock options. And I think those employees are the best because they really love what you're doing and what you're trying to do, and they support that vision and they want to be part of that more than just having a job. And for me, those people or team members are the best team members.
I wanted to just ask you, with the mindset we talked about when it comes to entrepreneurs, being a bit fearless, jumping into the unknown, we see in the staffing and recruitment sector as well. When it comes to technology now, they're going from basically a human-based business to more of a tech-driven business. And that's a pretty big transformation or shift. And it can be very hard to know, what technology should I invest in? How do I do this transformation? You need different kind of people, different kind of skills. What would be your advice based on your journey to how to approach this?
That's a really great challenge that I think a lot of companies in many industries are facing right now. They are seeing this big shift towards new technologies and they don't really grasp or understand how to and what to be able to integrate at their companies in order to be part of this big shift. I think there's a business opportunity there because there is clearly a gap in the market between all these, what can I say, Web 2.0 companies or traditional companies using digital technologies. They have a web page, they might have all of these digital tools, but they don't really understand how to integrate AI into this mix. And getting that help and to understand these things, it's definitely a business opportunity in the market space right now. We are still really thinking about it ourselves, like how do we solve these issues and how do we, because we like take Skyfri, for example, we're so busy focusing on our core markets and core product, which is not AI at the moment. So getting involved into how we can improve our internal processes using AI and also potentially external processes. It's a long shot because we don't have the resources to it. We're such a small company still. We need to focus where the spread is, basically.
I think that's the feeling a lot of recruitment managers have as well. I need to just do this. We're so busy with operational stuff, and you might quickly be left behind by smaller companies who is adopting this kind of technology and becoming a lot more efficient, who's just racing past you. But definitely a big challenge to evaluate when and what kind of technology to adopt. I think we need to wrap up this episode of Talent Horizon. It's been a pleasure talking with you, Murshid, about you and your new book, Doing the Impossible, in Norwegian for now. But I guess you'll look into AI technology to translate it as well.
Absolutely.
A huge
thank
thanks
you.
to you for joining us today and sharing your some insights about your entrepreneurial journey, about doing the impossible.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have being able to be here and contribute to the podcast and talking about the book.
Thank you, Murshid. I think the important thing to note as well for listeners is don't forget to grab a copy of that book, particularly if you're looking to be inspired or if you're just curious about what inevitably is the roller coaster world of startup.
And keep pushing those boundaries. And remember, in the world of tech and recruitment, doing the impossible may just be a challenge waiting to be tackled.
Or not to let it pass without saying that you make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any insights that could help you revolutionize your approach to talent.
All right. Until next time, keep expanding your horizon, and thanks for listening. And let's all keep building a future where talent meets opportunity at every corner.
Take care, and let's do the impossible together.